The conference today, has it been a success?
I think we can honestly say it has been, because the people who've come up afterwards have said they had a very interesting time, and it was very useful to have a really good cross-section of opinion on the panel, I think.
We've had some interesting speakers. What's been the highlight for you?
Oh, I think probably actually has to be said, Simon Richards. I thought they were all very good speeches, but I was delighted to see that he's actually getting his group to go out round the country and to explain things to people and to get people on the ground that we can rely on in the event of a referendum, which has got to be the answer, I think.
Robert Olds has had a long association with the Bruges Group.
Yes, he has indeed. Robert Olds is a very, very good speaker, and he's extremely good on detail. Anything to do with the EU and surrounding issues, he's got the answer. So I was delighted to have him here today.
And there's been a lot of questions from the audience on very relevant issues. And bearing in mind there's both been a boat race on today, and indeed
the Grand National.
So has it been a good bet for you as chairman?
I think it has actually, because there's been a great cross-section of questions, and lots of questions on the way out of the EU and what problems we have. And I think people really came together and realised that all the Eurosceptic groups have got to start working together towards getting us out, which is a very good start.
What does the future hold for the CIB?
I think the future holds for CIB a lot of action over the next couple of years, especially if there's going to be a referendum. Even if there isn't going to be a referendum in the near future, we've really got to get out there and explain to the people what's on offer outside the EU.
Do you think there's going to be a referendum in the short term? Is this something that is a reality, or is it something that Eurosceptics hope for?
I think it's a distinct possibility. None of us know what the outcome's going to be, so it's only a possibility. I'll believe it when I see it.
Anthony, you've come today to the CIB conference. Have you found it worthwhile?
I found it a fascinating discussion, very high quality indeed, yes.
What was the highlight of the afternoon for you?
Well, I think Robert Olds' presentation of the what was loosely called the Norway option. He says that we need, that is we who want to leave the EU, must have a strong exit plan, and he presented it. That is to say, rejoining after staying in the European Economic Area would not only reassure the electorate that their jobs and that trade and investment will be secure, but that also the business vote, the business people would be confident that exactly the same business situation would stay as it was on the day before we actually left the EU.
There's a multiplicity of different organisations on the Eurosceptic side of the fence. Do you see these organisations coming together in the near future for a common cause?
Yes, I think we do, yes. I think there's no reason why they shouldn't, yeah.
And do you think that there's a strong likelihood of a referendum in the near future, or is that just wishful thinking?
There will be a referendum sooner or later. I last night heard Shirley Williams, who's a good old European contender, say that this was not something that the European supporters, supporters of the EU could avoid indefinitely. She said it's simply just not feasible. There was not only in the UK but also in other countries of Europe, and I'm sure she's right. It may be put off for 3 or 4 or 5 years, but it's going to come, and Labour will also have to consider having a referendum if it gets into government.
We've listened to you this afternoon, and it has been quite a dynamic speech. How do you feel it went?
I enjoyed it. It's good to speak to such a clever and interested audience. That was really good for me, and to have such positive engagement from the audience, because we need to look towards having a plan of how we get out of the European Union, how we win a referendum if we were indeed to have one, and that's what I was presenting, and hopefully the audience took away what I said and will ponder it and will be in favour of a good positive way out of the European Union.
Because one of the criticisms of the Eurosceptic movement is that they're very good at complaining about being in the EU, but not so good at painting a picture of what life could be like outside. Is that something that you believe is the case?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with the European Union, and it's been very easy for us to focus on them, but time's now moved on. We now need to look at the positive alternatives. It's not enough just to criticise the EU or to have a silly Europe story about some EU initiative that's just completely daft or outright corrupt, is now need to look for a positive future that we can have outside of the European Union, where we can be a democratic, self-governing nation and still keep our trade links with other EU countries that would benefit British people and British businesses. So really we need to develop our positive vision and move beyond just the critical stage to a more thoughtful way of explaining to the British public, if they vote to leave the European Union, what that would be for and what they could get and how better off life could be.
Robert, there's a number of different ways the UK can leave the EU, and these are beginning to get a lot more publicity now than they have done previously. Do you have any views about what you think is the best way to leave the European Union?
The best way, in my opinion, of leaving the European Union is to follow what's known as the Norway option, or the alternative of rejoining the European Free Trade Association, remaining in what's known as the European Economic Area, which is essentially the single market, or otherwise known as the internal market. So there we're cancelling the political ties with Brussels, where they have the supremacy of EU law over national law, getting the EU out of justice and home affairs matters such as the European arrest warrant and other areas that are seen as a threat to civil liberties, but keeping the trade links, keeping the membership of the single market, which enables us to have full access to selling our goods and services to other EU countries with very little let or hindrance. So we need to separate from the public's mind the idea of EU membership and single market membership. We'll cancel the EU, but we'll keep the economic links, and we'll be a lot better off for doing so.
We've had a very interesting afternoon, I think. Has it been good for you?
Yes, I thought that it was a very high standard of speeches and equally high standard of extremely intelligent questions, which were very much to the point.
You gave a speech. Were you pleased with the reception of that speech?
Well, people were very polite.
And the attitude, the response, the general engagement was very positive, wasn't it?
Well, it seemed to me to be so, yes.
Do you think the CIB has a bright future over the next couple of years?
Well, I think we have an indispensable future because we are a cross-party organisation existing for a long time, so people know us pretty well, that we're fairly straight sort of people. We're not seeking individual personal advantage out of this, and that we can have a big contribution to helping people get together to fight a referendum if it comes, or to carry on the fight if it doesn't come.
One of the criticisms of the Eurosceptic industry, to call it that, is that it's very fragmented. How do you respond to that?
Yes, it is. And I've often wondered about that because we see the example, for instance, in Norway, where everybody appears to come together under the umbrella of the Ny til EU organisation, and it doesn't seem to happen here. And I think that's probably because British people are a bit cussed and individualistic, but we also have the advantage that we've got organisations such as Labour Euro Safeguards in the Labour Party, and the Freedom Association, which is very much regarded as more right-wing, and so on. So it's horses for courses, really.
Speaking of horses, there was a great horse race, of course, today, and a lot of people bet on coming here to listen to speakers rather than going to watch the race.
Well, I think that was jolly decent of them, but I really don't know what happened in the race, and I didn't have any money riding on it.
But it was a good bet for you to come here today.
So, yes, indeed it was. Thank you, yes.